I'm just going to share my screen. I just want to keep supporting what I'm talking about with a few images. Uh, and as you would all know, firstly, I would like to put it out there that the topic is, like Anubhav spoke about it's a huge area of work, and it's overwhelming in a way for me to take this conversation forward. So, sorry, just a minute. So basically, I'm going to. So today's topic is who moved my park, and I'm going to kind of pick up a lot of thoughts and ideas that we've come across, which inspires us, and a lot of the work that's getting done in this area around the world. And I want to kind of start with a slightly larger, broader perspective, which actually also informs a lot of our practice, design practice, and we try and bring that in our everyday kind of design assignments in a very small way. But so I'm going to zoom out quite a lot and then try and zoom in and talk about the pragmatic challenges and what we are trying in our own way. So, I'll start with this idea of the park. And basically, I've picked up a few thoughts on what could this idea of park mean to people, and what could it mean to us as a society, as a group of designers, as citizens. And I'm also using a framework of questions which were thrown at me to address this keynote from the team who's organizing it, and I'm using those as well. And one of the things that I want to start the conversation with is this: the park, in a way, signifies this interdependence of the society, of us as communities living together. And the idea of, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of inclusivity and, what it does to resilience, and especially in the times that we are living in with the COVID hitting us. It's really important. So I'll pick up two. So firstly, I mean, I just wanted to speak about, how it's personally kind of hit me, this immediate connect with the local communities and the way they've supported us during the COVID times, when the larger supply chains kind of broke down, and the local communities really became your immediate way of dealing with the situation. And that really called out the sense of interdependence and, the connections that we live with in urban environments. And I'm going to keep pulling on examples. So I've picked up this little story from David Engerwright, who works on placemaking, and he's a master at it, and he does some amazing work. But this is a little experiment that he did, and which I thought was quite interesting to share, and it kind of left an impression on me. So he walked around the cities of US and around the globe. He had this throne as an object created, and he was experimenting with how people, kind of respond to it. And people were loving it, taking photographs with it everywhere he went. And one of the stories he spoke about was his experience in a old, or not old, rather kind of isolated spot in Los Angeles, where he set up this throne. And in the afternoon, the police came to him and asked him, "What are you doing?" And he explained that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this throne up, and I'm going to wait for people to come and interact. And the police told him that basically this is going to be a tricky thing, because as evening comes in, you will have a lot of people, homeless people, coming this way, and you'll probably get mugged off your expensive cameras and all the hardware and everything else that you're carrying. And he kind of stuck around. He didn't take it in that spirit, and he said, "I'm going to give it a shot." He stayed there, and slowly, as the evening kind of emerged, a lot of different kind of people, a lot of homeless people started coming to that parking lot. And he says that the whole night was just so much fun in terms of people really wanted to just get photographed on that throne, and nobody was interested in actually mugging him. And he really speaks about how he connected and gave a sense of place, a sense of home to all these guys with his little transformative kind of installation that he'd done. And I mean, a lot of his examples are very simple gestures that can convert a public experience into something very meaningful and soulful. Uh, I'll move forward to, so these are some images of the people who came and took pictures there. And then I'm using a larger framework from the work that Sharif Abdullah has been writing about, where he refers to this idea of a, a place for, common alignment and across the community. And this idea of what the park stands for is actually a place where we can connect with each other, create a sense of trust, create a common kind of value that we can all pursue. And of course, he also talks about inclusivity and this idea of connection. So, I mean, in a way, one big thought is that so there's a lot of work being done on this factor of trust and the happiness factors of cities, and the public spaces make a huge impact there. So a public space actually allows for you to experience friendliness if it's welcoming and safe, and somewhere it also connects different ethnicities, which in a country like ours is, and globally it's super important at the times in the times that we are living in. And then I'll move to this larger idea that he speaks about of the shared and common space that allows us to kind of look at how to like how can we create a new society, and it actually allows for a platform. And in a way, that's what the opportunity is. I feel that this notion of the common space allows for, where traditionally in all old cities, like this is Prague and most of the European cities, even our traditional old cities, always had this sense of center, a place where you would have, say, a local temple or a mosque, a large square where markets would get created. And that gave a sense of anchoring to the community. And that's the whole idea, that somewhere we as designers have an opportunity to create a dialogue with public spaces which looks at equality at a community level, at an economical level, ecologically across the globe, and even at a spiritual level. So I'm just going to talk about, for us, in our own way, we've constantly looked at respecting all stakeholders on our projects. So in our small way, that's what we try and do when we do projects, the idea of building with local communities, working with local materials, and engaging local economies to that degree in the construction process that we work with. And really looking at profits not for the sake of profits, but also what it does to the larger good of the community and larger good of the people that we are working with and the impact that it's going to leave. And of course, we practice something called conscious design, and which is an idea where we are constantly trying to build our awareness, growing our awareness about how things impact people and how everything that we do is interconnected, and it's kind of impacting people in different ways. And he really kind of pushes this factor of, the common or the park being like a platform to really experiment and look at how we can build a new future, and the idea of how we practice democracy. And that's an idea that's kind of shared across many people, and we can see it back home, even in, say, this is the protest happening at India Gate for the anti-CA protest happening, or even in Mumbai at the Azad Maidan, which is a ground for protests and people to come together and really participate in decision making and democracy. So that's a base conversation that kind of I wanted to build on, and then I'm going to move to more specific questions, like a group of questions around what is the role of public spaces and how are we missing out on that when we are looking at smart cities. And I think the key thing to look at is just the attitude with which urbanization is being looked at, and the value systems that we are kind of making considerations with. So even if you don't look at larger gestures and things that are expressions of large public experiences, what Anubhav spoke about in his last conversation, even little things like missing uh, footpaths, and there's just no way to navigate our cities. So like the modern cities that we are creating don't have room for people to walk. I mean, you can actually not use these roads as pedestrians without getting killed. There's just no planning for it, no rooms left for it. And these are such critical learnings that we need to pick up from the work that's getting done globally. There are a lot of learnings in the from the Western countries which have built cities and failed with them, and work done by a lot of the like Charles Montgomery's experiments with a happy city. And I'm going to pick up a few instances that he speaks about. Like he's talking about this modern approach of you know streets which are completely cold, and the modern expression of the streets which is not allowing for any connect at the street level, and the edges are becoming completely non-porous. And they did a series of experiments of how people experience and what is the amount of time people spend on these streets versus streets of this nature, which are very porous and which create that social connect, and which have that sense of warmth. uh, so the idea of happiness, uh, social connections, uh, is very important, and it's very kind of apparent in the way we look at urban spaces and the interaction available at the urban scale. And a little example of uh, another experiment that he did, where they had been running these polls on, would you raise the minimum wage of people who work through the night in New York? And through the streets of New York, there were polling sessions going on, and most of the collective vote was that hell no. I mean, we are all kind of working so hard, and why should they get any advantage? And I think they created an environment of trust. They created an environment of ease in a public space, and reran the poll with a fair number of people, and the polls kind of completely inversed. So this idea of what the space does to you, this what kind of emotions it creates, and what it allows us to live with as a society, where we treat each other in that sense with equality, with respect, with love, is very important factor that governs the kind of public spaces that one could create. Another question about this idea of vertical growth, and if that was the only model, and whether we should look at other options. And definitely, I just wanted to talk about one very prominent project that I think everybody is familiar with in a way, is the High Line in New York, and what it did for the Eastern community. And so this High Line was built uh, as the public park over this old freight train tracks. And somewhere, what happened in the planning of the High Line is very interesting. And collectively, I think as a group of architects, policymakers, people who are engaged in the project, they consistently went through every aspect of the planning, all the way down to even the new developments that would happen around the High Line. So there was a very rigorous kind of engagement with developers and creating guidelines for developers, where the new developments were actually kind of pushed away from the High Line, creating a sense of breathing space around it. So there was a vertical corridor, vertical kind of built that happened, but without impacting the sense of space that the High Line was aspiring to create for the neighborhood. And it, of course, creates an amazing space uh, for many neighborhoods, where it's a easy link to multiple neighborhoods, and people really end up spending a lot of time and connecting with each other in this space. Uh, so it is an important idea, and the idea of densifying cities and vertically kind of looking at density needs to be balanced with urban developments and pockets, green pockets and public spaces, populating the space and giving opportunities for people to kind of uh, connect with nature and find that space to breathe. Uh, another another thing that I think I would like to address is this situation of COVID and the condition that our cities and our urban spaces go through. So one of the question was, what are the like I've spoken about a lot of examples, and there are many international examples of the High Lines there, the Central Park is there, the Millennium Park at Chicago, and of course the old European cities. I mean, they naturally have been created with lots of green breathing pockets and large plazas and public spaces interspersed. Uh, and one of our kind of, we can't undermine this great legacy that we have in Mumbai city, which is the Marine Drive, and what it does, even today for us. It really is that place where people find their own private pockets, they interact. People from all uh, kinds of neighborhoods across the city are invited to kind of participate and be part of this and enjoy the ocean views and the fresh air and the breeze on this walkway. And in a way, I think the challenge is, so that's what happened. I think when the lockdown opened in Mumbai, and just the sheer density was not something that was acceptable uh, for what we are dealing with right now. But this is, I think, the challenge we have, and I think what we need to really look at is creating more spaces, more opportunities for people to step out. And I mean, that's India Gate at Delhi, which also offers a similar kind of breather for people. And we should just be looking at creating a lot many more of them. The challenge is going to stay in terms of density, but we need to kind of approach it keeping that in mind. And that's really something that we as designers need to work towards, and that's something that excites us to contribute to. So yeah, just to sum it up, there is a huge kind of importance to public spaces, and there are various things that can be done to empower people, to empower communities, to contribute and build public spaces. And I think uh, some of the things that as designers we need to really understand and start focusing on is how do you safeguard against commercial interest? Because building a mall is always something that contests uh, a great public space. And as society and as a community, we need to create interventions which will help people deal with the fear of unwanted and welcome people. And that always comes up for public spaces. Like people are always wary of uh, safety because of uh, the kind of people who would engage with it. And how do you create structures that allow for surveillance and control, but don't take away the accessibility or uh, or allow for inclusivity. And of course, at the larger scale, when we are talking about the administration and the governance and maintenance, there are concerns of investments and logistics of going through the governance bodies and how designers can work with them. And so, I mean, all of these are very large ideas. And what I wanted to speak a little bit about is, how people, how we as designers and how citizens can do something. And increasingly, I think we are becoming aware that it is about understanding the constraints and understanding the limitations of the systems, and working with it, and engaging all the stakeholders and influencing them to create a shift in their attitude and their thinking. And little little interventions, one step at a time, that's what's going to create impact. And I think that's an opportunity for all designers as well as even citizens to try and contribute and create a shift by building up their awareness. So I'm sharing these two projects, which to our mind are just some experiments we've done, and in a way they address some different ways of looking at how we can push the boundaries of the public and the private spaces, and uh, actually use other uh, other ways in which public spaces could be created in the city. So the first example is a recent project that we've done for the Odisha government. It's basically a building for the agricultural directorate, where we proposed to open up the ground floor level as a seamless kind of experience to the city and the community they are serving, which is the farmers. So the entire ground floor of the office building opens up to the public, and then we've used it as a canvas to bring in craft and layer it and activate it with multiple activities which would engage the farmers as well as the local uh, public to come in. There are amphitheaters for performances, there are hearts where the local produce can be brought in and shared with the residents. There are special workshop areas and engagement areas for the farmers themselves, who can interact and connect with the people who are running this office. And a series of interventions across the ground level, working with various kinds of crafts and populating the landscape with uh, elements of interest, allowing for different pockets and different spaces to get created. So also as a this was also a platform for the government to be a patron to craft. So it almost engaged some 300 craftsmen to come in and kind of work directly on the surfaces of this building in different forms. We built stone screens and direct large murals expressed on the soft stone, that was the laterite stone that was used at the ground floor level. And the building itself has a set of wearing spaces and courtyards to rest during the warm months. And the other project that I picked up is, again, what we did with GPL, GPL Studio, and Anubhav was leading this with us, where the brief was to actually create a gateway to, or rather a seamless connect to a gated community and give back some part of the experience to the city and connect with the urban fabric in Vikhroli, where people would come into this zone and kind of participate, and that would be an interface between the mixed use and the residential complexes which are created as part of this development. So we took this old legacy buildings, which are part of the old factories and industrial township of Godrej in Vikhroli, and kind of articulated them. And in terms of master planning, worked around creating spaces and pockets of interaction for people to gather. And that's a set of two buildings which forms the gateway to the courtyard, within which sits a little, we converted a old boiler structure into a cafeteria, which now Social is running. And there's continuous development happening in this precinct area, where we are developing it further and making it into a plaza which can be activated with events and F&B experiences and public experiences. These are some of the development images, and that's how the transformation happened. So that's as it is alive with before, just after setup. Yeah, that's the plaza when it kind of comes alive, with people kind of connecting from the city and coming together to have on various occasions, as set up by GTL and associated partners. Yeah, so thank you. These were two projects that I thought directly kind of spoke about our attempt at contributing to the public spaces and our thoughts on how, as architects and designers, we can make an impact in a vast kind of area of or a vast gap that we have in our urban planning and in our cities especially, that needs a huge amount of attention. So, thank you for this.